I was very self-conscious about myself, especially in middle school and high school. I think I went through a really strange time of like trying to find myself.
I could say that in middle school, that was the first time I had been to a private school, so it was a whole different experience for me. And I did feel like, at least being in the atmosphere that I was with the classmates that I had, it was sort of like a negative impact on the way I felt about myself. The majority of my classmates were white, and I felt like most of the guys were interested in the white girls, like the brunettes or the ones with the blonde hair. And that, that impacted me.
I always felt very, I don't know, like misunderstood, obviously. I felt like divided. Like when I was in Davis, it was like my American side, and I would like just try to like pretend I celebrated Easter, or like pretend that my family cared about 4th of July, and like just all these things that like weren't real in my life. And like just the microaggressions I faced here, like being exotified or like just kind of like reduced to like a general homogenized brownness. Like I'll be asked questions about India, and I'll be asked questions about like Nepal. It's like, why are you just like seeing me for like not even understanding my experiences?
I have struggled with disordered eating since I was 13, 14 years old, and it really affected the way that I saw myself and saw my worth. I think that I equated my own being and my own value with my body and my weight. I was at a loss of control in my life, and the one thing I could control was my food.
This one time where I was back at home and my boyfriend was visiting me, so we were in Miami and we were just walking back to the car, and this man approaches us, and he was like a promoter for a club. So he comes up to us and he says, "Hey, do you guys want to go to this club tonight?" I was just gonna like walk past him, not say anything. But my boyfriend was like, "No, we're good." And so we're walking, we had passed him, and then he like turns around and then he yells back, "You're too black for him." I was like, did he really just say that?
We were doing this project called Perceptions of Prejudice, and everyone was supposed to give like a speech about times they felt prejudice, or if not, then just an example of a prejudice issue. A woman in 2009 who was shot named Neda, and she was an Iranian woman who was shot just going to a protest. I was just talking about how like when I go to a protest in the US, I don't have to like risk that, but when she does, she did, and she lost her life. And then the next day in class, I remember I was raising my hand to like answer a question, and my teacher was like, "Not now, Neda." Like he was referencing my speech, and this woman who was like shot for trying to like have her voice, and I was in my speech trying to say that like I feel so privileged for not being here, and for him to like, one, tell me like not to speak, and two, call me her name. Like I just felt like, wow, like even when I put my heart on the line and I try to explain to people like my background, and like it just still wasn't enough, and like they still had the audacity to like disrespect.
This one day, like rock bottom point, I was malnourished, and I was having like these mini almost seizures from being malnourished, and would go shaking for days. And it was the first time where I was actually really scared of myself. And it was that day that I decided, like, fuck this, I've had enough. Like, I'm going to pursue recovery because this is not worth any of it. And clearly, like, if this state of being is where I am from all of the dieting and the fasting and, obsessively controlling my food, I'm never actually gonna be confident that way. It took a long time for me to feel love for my body. The first step that I took was trying to just feel neutral about my body instead of positive about my body. The body positive movement can be a little bit exclusionary in that way, where if you don't always feel 100% like I look hot right now, you feel like you don't really have a place in it. So I just started trying to feel neutral.
So I practiced my passion of self-love through my hair. Growing up, it was always a struggle to love my hair and love the way I was with it, because when I was 12, my mom decided to like have it chemically straightened. After that, my hair was like fragile, and it would always just like be in like this bad state and it just wouldn't grow and it looked bad. It was my senior year of high school. I decided to like stop chemically treating my hair, and I was like, I'm gonna go natural. And I always like practice having patience and accepting it, and just like really like telling myself that like my hair was beautiful and like I could look beautiful with it naturally the way it was.
Do I feel like a confident woman now? I feel like I'm getting there. I feel like really good, and I feel like better, and I feel like every year I learn more and more about like what it means to be like a woman, and like even like deconstructing that word, and like just what it means to be a person, and what it like who I am and what my spirit entails. And I finally realized that I'm so fed up with trying to prove myself to people and like show people who I am and like show people my stories, because like they don't deserve that, and I don't have to give that labor constantly.
When I look back now, I see like this small girl, whereas now as I'm like dating a woman and living out my sexuality and my truth and finally becoming, you know, independent in a sense, I feel like an actual woman, whereas in my past relationships I felt like a little girl.
I would tell my childhood self to know that you are beautiful the way you are, and that you may look different from everyone else, but that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. And all the baby fat you have now, you're gonna lose it later. And you could change your hair up when you're older, and you'll find somebody that loves you. And if you have the right mindset, you'll be happy.
If I could tell my younger self anything, it would be to not try and fulfill some sort of archetype that I believed that a woman was, that I could become my own archetype of myself. I was always either trying to be the perfectionist or, you know, the fun, cool girl, or the, you know, all of these different kind of categories of what I assumed a woman to be. And in reality, like, I have components of various types of women that I look up to and that I've seen and grown into, and that I can be my own archetype.
We were writing letters to our childhood self, so I like started my letter off with this little like drawing. My letter says, okay, "Dear little brown hairy girl, they could never understand your power. Their ancestors tried to hold you down, but your ancestors fought and loved their children regardless. They loved their people and their ways. Little girl, that love will never leave you. Keep them in your heart and know they wanted you to love yourself. They love you, and when you love you, you love them, and by extension, you are loving you. I know the other kids are mean. I know they don't know you have fire in you always. I know the boys can say harsh things, but I love you, and that fire will burn their hate, and I love you."